Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost,
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but.
The Freightliner? It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pert Near Outdoors Podcast. Your host Billy here, and this is going to be part 2 of our presentation. If you joined us on the last episode, you would have heard the presentation from Steve Shirk. This is going to be Dallas and I's presentation on how to strategize and plan a successful and safe group hunt. So we've really kind of honed in on this being our specialty. We love doing our tree stand stuff. We love going west. We love doing this and that. But in the end of the day, we die for those opportunities to get together with 10, 12, 15 plus of us and put together a huge group coordinated hunt and have success individually, have success as a group, and just get out there and make memories. So this is a presentation that Dallas and I did for that same NDA branch, the Upper Genesee branch down in Wellsville, and we had a blast. Had a blast sharing our story and answering some questions, and hope that we inspire others to start a tradition of their own to go do the same thing. So enjoy this discussion. Hope you all have a great week, and keep feeding them. Oh, we're good.
I gotta stay with you. I can't reach.
All right, as promised, next up.
Well, I can move this over there if you want me to.
Obviously, talking
I can move it.
about plan and strategize.
I'm just gonna stand.
Okay, you can stand here.
Hey guys, nothing in State Park, right? It's not here about State Park.
Okay, so just go where Steve hunts. That's the key to success. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for Steve for your presentation. And Dallas, you had some sort of cute line you were going to say about this.
Oh, this is Billy, and I'm Dallas, and we are not Steve Shirk.
Yeah.
So
So we were talking about how this. It's a tough act to follow with Steve. And Steve, anybody who doesn't know Steve or hasn't been following him, you should be following him. Dallas and I had a chance to go and do a little scouting mission with Steve back in, I think it was the spring of 2020. And the amount that Dallas and I learned in that 3 hours that we spent with you, Steve, it taught us so much about the way that the deer use the mountains, how they travel, where they live, where they bed, how they escape, that it's actually helped us a lot, I think, in having the success that we have on our big group hunts that we do down in Pennsylvania.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's serious. And, Steve talked a lot about hunting pressure. We're going to teach you how to properly pressure the deer so you can kill them. Because there is a science to it, believe it or not. So, like Dallas said, this is Dallas. I'm Billy. We're with Pert Near Outdoors. We're up in the Wyoming County area, Attica, Sheldon. And we're going to kind of walk through a little bit of history of this hunt that we do as a group. But I think the mission of this is to show how we do it, how we've evolved, how we've gotten better at it, and the successes followed that. And success is not measured in how big the buck is or whether Dallas shoots one or I shoot one. It's whether somebody in our group goes home with a deer and has success. Or we've had hunts where we don't even shoot a deer and we're frustrated because we didn't come home with anything, but we all learned something, we had a good time, and we made memories along the way. And I think that's something that everybody in this room, we've got all generations in here. Hunting is about the fun that we have and the passion that we have for it. It's not always about how big the rack is, it's about the memories you take home. So success is measured however you want to measure it. So Dallas is going to give us a little history on the PA deer camp.
Yeah, I guess this was my first PA deer camp and one of my first bucks, and this was, I think, 1996 when we first started getting started on this hunt. And this was back in the Orange Army days of Pennsylvania, where when the sun came up, it looked like a pumpkin patch, and it was kind of like every man for himself out there. As you can see, we did have a little success, but it was a little scary, so we actually didn't go back for a little while until actually the early 2000s. Things really changed in Pennsylvania when the antler restrictions came in. And it seemed like, I don't know if it was coincidence, if it was hunters aging out, or if some people didn't like the APRs, but the hunting pressure started going down. It seemed to be less hunters in the area. So as soon as we started going back in the early 2000s, we started seeing way better quality animals as well as less hunters. And actually less deer too, which was an important thing of what they did too. They started taking out more does and started taking care of the herd a lot better. Far better quality deer is what we see in Pennsylvania now. So that's just a little bit of background on what we were doing here, but the hunt's totally evolved since that time.
Yeah, and so the why we wanted to show these pictures and a little bit of the history is that it started out with just a couple guys. That's Bob, Dallas's dad. That's Dallas, and that's who the hell is that? That's an awesome tuxedo there.
Yeah.
Who is that?
That's a Canadian tuxedo right there.
Yeah.
I think he was flying at the Canadian flag there.
That's right. So these hunts, I think, if you don't have this tradition in your hunting group or have a group of friends you do this with, it doesn't have to start out with 20 people. You can start out with this little hunting trip that you may plan. Get it going. Get a friend or two that might want to go adventure a new area, start a new tradition. And as we'll talk about, this is how it's exploded for us over the last few years, where it started out with just a good year with 6 of us. And before you know it, everybody and their brother wanted to come with. We're bringing our dad. You know, my dad came last year for the first time. We've been trying to get my brother to come. He's scared of the mountains. We'll get him past that. He likes this flat farmland where there's tons of deer and there's corn and stuff. But anyway.
Work smarter than ours.
That's right. So it can start here and end up where we're headed. So Dallas and I, this is our first time doing a presentation together, and we didn't plan for this at all. So I don't really know who's going to go when, but I'll talk a little bit to start. So the logistics of picking your spot of where to go, you could do this anywhere. You could do this in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Vermont, Northeast. It doesn't matter. Find a place where there's land that you can get access to. Ideally, we do a lot of our stuff on state land, whether it be in Pennsylvania or New York. It's easy drive, an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. Make it easy. Make it something that you can get to. So identifying who to do this with, finding a good hunting partner. We probably all have experience hunting with somebody. You think this guy is your best friend. You take him hunting, and it's like, I don't ever want to spend another minute in the woods with that person. That's bad for all of our health and our well-being. So, you got to kind of vet out your hunting buddies, and we've become very protective of this hunt, and we're very selective of who we allow to come in with us as our group grows, because they need to fit. They need to all get along, because you have one person that isn't good could cause a problem. When you're picking your spot, you need to know what type of hunting you want to do. Are you going to be doing drives? Are you going to sit in tree stands like a lot of the stuff Steve's talking about? Or are you going to be doing deer tracking? Do you need big, long expanses of property where you can just hit the ground and go maybe for 8 to 10 miles in one direction and not have to worry about whose property you're on? When picking the season, we've found for us, we're big gun hunters. We love to do these sorts of hunts as a group during rifle season, so we kind of selectively do that. And where, identifying an area that has all types of terrain and habitat that you like to hunt. What I like might be different than what you like. Kind of try to vet that out, look what you're going for. Something that Pennsylvania is doing, and New York is actually starting to do it, which is very encouraging, and actually in this area, is they're doing active timber harvests, and they're starting to do that in Allegheny County and some of the state forests. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend it. These pieces of woods are being actively managed now where they haven't in the past. And the deer activity, Steve didn't get into a ton of that in his presentation, but key around those focal points of those timber cuts. Don't overlook small pieces. Doesn't have to be a massive piece of property. You can look at those little 150-acre pieces of state land. Those might be overlooked little honey holes that you might be able to get into and have success. And I added this one. I think it's important. If you hunt somewhere one time, maybe you go down with some friends or yourself and you hunt somewhere for 2 or 3 days, you don't have success. Don't just write that place off. There's a lot of value to going back to the same place multiple times to kind of give it a chance. Look at history of sign that you see on the ground. Is there rubs there that, maybe you just aren't there at the right time, or they aren't there because the food's not there. Give a place a chance, because there's value to kind of knowing the ground as you go. Anything you got to add to that, Brother Dallas?
The last point's good too. Like, that's, whether you mention it or not, we're all bow hunters. I mean, we spend all of October, November sitting in saddles and bow hunting too. A lot of people don't like to explore the gun hunting side of things, but what we do here is actually we cover a lot of ground. So you're constantly scouting and seeing new areas and learning a lot of things about the land while you're gun hunting. So you're having a good time. You're hunting. You're trying to kill a deer, but the whole time you're thinking, wow, look at this rub line. Look at the scrapes I found. Look at these trails. Like, this would be a great spot to bow hunt. I mean, there's like every day I'm coming across a spot where it's like, wow, this would be a great spot to come back in October next year and bow hunt. And that's one of the main things I pick up a lot of times.
Yep. Now this picture here, this is logistics in the mountains. So this is our group. Every time we're together, whether it's eating lunch, getting together at the trucks before we break off for the hunt in the morning, we're looking at maps. Maps are our life when we do these sorts of hunts, because you've got to know where you are, and we'll get into that. But that's a picture of the crew eating sandwiches, standing around looking at a map. All right, so part of these trips, if you're leaving town, you got to figure out where you're going to stay. Are you going to do a day trip? If you're going to do a day trip, not a big deal. Make sure it's a distance that you can drive and handle, no biggie. But if you're going to do an overnight, in the past, Dallas, that first picture, they were camping. That's an option. But you get further into December, you don't know what you're going to get for weather. It could be cold, nasty. It's nice to go back and get a hot shower. We're all like to pretend we're super tough and we can handle it. But you go 2 or 3 days living in a tent, you're wishing you were at home cuddled up next to your wife. So the best thing you could have is cuddled up next to Dallas, who smells terrible, and you don't want to be anywhere near him, but at least you're warm and you're happy. So we've evolved. We went from staying in a motel, which was fine, but it was, it was weird. You really couldn't bring your guns. You didn't want to bring your gun inside. What are you doing? Were you hanging your stuff to dry it? And a few years ago, I don't know, we were talking earlier, we went back maybe 6 years ago, we started. We rented our first Airbnb with like 6 or 8 of us. And that experience would completely change the dynamic of this hunt, because we had a place to sleep, a place to shower, a place to eat together, and a place to kind of gather and have that camaraderie after the hunt. That added a whole nother dynamic to the adventure. So, there's other Airbnbs, the one that we use. It's evolved now to where we are renting 3 houses because we have so many people. We're renting 3 houses. It's a lot to manage, but it's amazing. We found 3 great places that are within a half a mile of each other, and we can, we take turns cooking dinners. So that has added a whole nother dynamic where we love the all-day hunt from sun up to sundown, but man, we can't wait to get back to camp, get showered, and go over to the neighbor's house and hang out for 3 hours and tell stories and pick on each other and do whatever. So we talked about that, the mapping and planning. So I've got a few logos or things up here. So this is a Garmin Rhino, and we'll talk a little bit about these and kind of how they play a factor. But this is a screenshot. It's tough to see for everybody. But what these Garmin Rhinos do, they're GPSs. If you haven't used them before, it's a GPS 2-way radio. So anyone who's using that Garmin Rhino can also see anybody who's on that same channel within range. You can see where they are, and you can communicate with them. So that tool has become a mandatory tool in our hunts, because we've had big issues with people getting lost, not knowing where they are. We can't communicate, and that's very dangerous, because if you don't know where everybody else is, number one, if you're going to shoot, it's not a safe situation. Number two, when it's time, the hunt's over, and you're like, where's Jim? I don't know, haven't seen him in 6 hours. Like, that's not good, because we have no cell service, and we need to get the hell out of the woods. That actually happened 2 years ago. I brought one of my friends that I met in Pennsylvania with us. He met us over there to hunt, and he got lost on the second day, and no one knew where he was for like 5-6 hours. And he didn't have a Garmin Rhino. He was just trying to use a 2-way radio. He was MIA. No one knew where he was. He had no idea. Luckily, he did the right thing and went back to his truck where he came from, where he started, and he just drove the roads, right? Or you ran into him or something?
Yeah, we found him on the roads. But
yeah.
The better point is that it seems like somebody told Billy that Jim shouldn't be there without a Garmin Rhino.
That's not part of this presentation, Dallas. So it's now a mandatory requirement for everyone to have one of these tools. Steve talked about Spartan Forge. we use Onyx quite a bit. I also use Spartan Forge, but using one of these mobile apps where you can track yourself, have your tracker on and know where you are, where you've been, where you're going, it's a huge tool. I would love to be really good with a compass, but nowadays with how good this technology is, you can put your phone on airplane mode with the maps downloaded, hit the tracker, and you know everywhere you've been today and where you're going. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. I think that's about everything there. You got anything else?
You still need a compass, though.
You need a compass, yeah. I don't know how to use it, but I carry one.
GPS will tell
Dallas
you.
says I have to.
GPS will tell you where you're at and where you want to go, but it doesn't tell you how to get there.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to still have a compass to pull out. Not to mention if your technology fails, your batteries die, you don't have reception, whatever, but you need to be able to pull a compass out and still look and see the direction that you need to go. But basically the phones and the GPS pretty much does it for you.
Yep. I forgot to mention too that we want this to also be interactive. I should have led with that. But if anybody has any questions, fire away. We're happy to field them. I threw in some tech tips here. To Dallas's point, when we go out, when I do any of these hunts, whether it's in Pennsylvania, at home in New York, or if I'm going out west, I'm always carrying extra batteries for any device I'm carrying, whether it's a headlamp, two-way radios, anything that's taking its own individual battery. I'm carrying, whether it's double A's, triple A's, I'm carrying those with me. For my cell phone, I bring a supplemental battery with me, so I have that. That's just a pure safety thing. Running your cell phone in the mountains on airplane mode, that is key, because if your phone's constantly trying to gain cell service, it's struggling and it's draining your battery. And also keep it next to you, keep it warm. I made that mistake my first time going to Colorado, and my first night in the mountains, the temperature dropped. I had my phone outside my sleeping bag, and I woke up in the morning and I needed that thing to last me 7 to 8 days. And the battery was, it was dramatically down. And what I learned is keep it inside your sleeping bag, keep it inside your jacket, because that cold air will drain that battery down. Download maps for offline use. We talked about that. Print hard copies of maps if you're going in a place where you need to navigate, and try to have everyone using the same mobile app. So, as a group, we're all using Onyx. That's what most of the guys are using. So we've kind of tried to push everyone in that direction, and that's important. And then the Garmin Rhinos, as I talked about, have become a must for us in our style of hunting. And one of the things we found last year, which is beautiful, is that you can rent these things. So it is a huge investment. You buy a Garmin Rhino, they can be, some of the higher end ones are upwards of $600 to $700. They're amazing pieces of equipment, but that's a lot of money to foot if you're going to do this for 3 days a year. So we did find a website where you can actually rent them and run them for 3 days if you want to for like $90. So it's actually not a pretty bad deal, and it's a good deal. So any questions on any of that? Okay, we're about to get to the killing, so don't worry. Our trip agenda, just to kind of give you an idea, when we do these hunts, it's very strategic. If we leave our house, we're in Buffalo area, so we leave. It's a 2-hour drive to get down. We leave Thursday morning. We show up at the trailhead. Everybody's there in their trucks. They know what their mission is for that day, and we hit the ground running. We're doing our first hunt by 7 a.m. Guys are headed into the woods and ready to start our first hunt as a group. We hunt all day. We usually have the first day's hunts all planned out ahead of time. We do the hunts, and who knows what happens in the first hunt. You might kill a couple deer and it throws everything sideways. But we'll get back and we'll do that for all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and then Saturday night we just relax, kind of bring everything together, and we head home Sunday. And I added a little piece here to see if anybody's paying attention, but we head home to our disastrous households on Sunday morning where our wives aren't pleased that deer season is still going on, but there's still a month left and we have to try to manage all that.
Bill, are you talking about, is that Thanksgiving morning you're leaving?
No, the
So
week after.
we typically go, our Pennsylvania hunt that we've done, we usually have done the second weekend of season, however it falls.
Okay.
So it's usually like the Thursday after opening day, I guess, is what it would be for you guys. Dallas, I'll let you take this one since I'm talking too much.
See that?
You want your pointer?
Yeah. Okay. This is actually a map of one of our hunts from the past year. So what we're doing here is actually using this happens to be Onyx. You could probably use any mapping app that you want to do, but I'm printing out topo maps of areas that we want to hunt. And then I'm actually drawing, and this, don't get overwhelmed by the amount of people that are here because there are a lot, but you could do it. We do this a week later. Me and Rob went by ourselves and we drew maps for the two of us. It's still important. The theory doesn't really change what you want to do. But what this allows you to do is put a group of people together and organize a hunt and actually put positions on a map, almost like a football play, for where we want the movement to go. And then if you see an X, we're looking at a sitter here. So these people are going to be stationary and we're trying to push deer to them. So everybody with arrows and lines are actually walking these routes and trying to funnel deer up to the sitters that are labeled with X's here. So we're using topography to identify where we think we can find and push bucks in the big woods towards people. So you see numbers identified on all these, and then here's a list of people with everybody's name on them that tells them where they're going, what they're doing. And then we'll also have, I know you can't see a lot of this, but there's extra instructions up here of kind of what the game plan is. And to get an idea too of the scale of this, this takes about a half a day. You're going to be driving in and setting up around sunrise, and when you get done with this, it's lunchtime. So I want to say best case we can do 2 big hunts a day, but actually the best case is when we kill 2 or 3 deer in the morning and we actually have to spend an extra couple hours getting everybody regrouped, and then you have to actually cram in a hunt in the afternoon. I guess some of Billy's points here are being, we're going to pull up another example map after this as far as some of the features that we're looking at, but again, using topography, the nice thing about hunting hills is that the topography kind of tells you what to do. We're generally going to be finding bucks bedded high in the topography, and we're going to get them to push them, we're going to try to push them towards funnel points. So we're going to either try to push them up through like a saddle here, or just what they'll do is run along these, they'll actually hold elevation and run along these side hills, and then we'll have people sitting at the top waiting for them. And then basically, if you can get a deer into one of these draws, you make them make a decision. They either have to go up and out and pick a spot where they can get up and out quick and easy, or a lot of times what they'll do is cross the valley over to the other side, and then we'll have other people walking across there that are waiting for them to come across, and that's where a lot of them meet their demise, is actually the pushers. One of us will push them to another one, and they'll just come across another pusher.
So just, keying in on when you're looking at a map, whether you're looking at a satellite image or you go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish your
I'll just say, whether you're looking at a satellite image or a topo image, look at where has there been clear cuts, where is there creeks, where is there roads, benches, really sharp points where you can see elevation changes dramatically. Those are areas where you've got topography to your advantage and you can help escort the deer in the direction you want them to go. And the last piece I had was using the wind, and Steve talked a little bit about thermals. Thermals are actually massive in hunting in the hills like this, but on flat ground, the wind you go up into ag land, you get more consistent winds. You can kind of hunt. You got a west wind, you can hunt a west wind. But you come down here or anywhere south, up in the Finger Lakes, it's all hills. The wind just swirls, and if you try to hunt the wind, you're kind of wasting your time. So, you got a question?
Everybody gets the map like that?
Yep.
Okay, is that a north arrow in the upper left corner?
So that's not a north arrow, but that's a great point.
You should orient your maps.
Yes.
And maps always, north is the top of the map.
Yep, that's a great point. So what we've been doing is we'll have one main map, and then we'll take a picture of it and we'll send it out to everybody. But that's a great idea. is that I don't think we do that usually, to have like an arrow showing what's north, what's southwest.
All maps are printed on any map that I distribute. It's going to be printed with north up.
But we've got guys like Peter Michael Hanus that can't find his way out of the woods. Yeah. There's one in every crowd.
On alert.
Yeah.
On alert and
Yeah, well, between Rob and his stepdad Pete, they get lost all the time. So. So this is how many? Is everybody familiar with thermals? I don't want to. So I didn't know anything about thermals until I went out west, and that's everything out there. And it changed my perspective on hunting back here, and I brought that home, and I think it's helped me a lot. But it's just very simple. The warm air rises in the morning, and the cold air rises at night, and then it's a cycle, and it happens. And to Steve's point, if you got an east-facing slope, that's going to warm up really quick because the sun's going to hit it. We've got some up at camp. We've got a west-facing slope that doesn't see sun until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it may be cold over there, and the thermal's dropping almost all day. So,
to Steve's point earlier, though, the wind at some point will override the thermals, but it is a combination of both, though. So, like when we're usually doing, obviously when you're gun hunting, it's going to be late November into December. So usually you got cold, windy conditions. It's usually nasty out there. So even in the morning, the wind's usually ripping pretty good, so we don't see a lot of morning dropping thermals. I think what I see more is the wind ripping through the valleys and then up and out. Mm-hmm. So that's why usually our hunt strategies, if we're trying to push deer and have sitters, we want to have all our sitters up high, because usually the wind is going to come, it may be coming across, but it's almost never going down. Now it'll swirl and maybe suck down a little bit, but usually your air is pulling back out of these valleys and up onto the ridges. So usually you're safer being up higher, especially in these late season conditions where the wind is really strong and swirling. All right, so this is just an example map of a large area. Again, I don't know how great anybody can see it, but I'm just going to point out a couple of the features that we're looking at here. Again, this is Onyx, but other mapping services have this, but they're showing what this is obviously okay. A couple of simple things, like this is a state route. So we're doing some map scouting here, looking for an area to hunt. You're looking at a state route that you can drive your truck down, and then in timber country like Pennsylvania, you'll have these forestry roads here. This is a main, that actually might be a main road. This is a forestry road here where you can actually drive a truck up. And then a lot of times you'll have different forestry roads that'll branch off of here, and oftentimes they'll be gated. And that's something you might have to scout on your own to see what roads are going to be open and closed. There are services that'll show you what roads will be open and closed. Pennsylvania has one of their own that'll show you. And as far as looking for areas to hunt, obviously you're looking for access to be able to get to a place. And then clear cuts is a big thing. So this is actually showing you that this place was a shelter wood cut in 2018, and this one was a removal in 2018. So there's different kinds of cuts. But this is giving you, any clear cut on a map is pretty much a flashing red light saying there's deer here. Because they're going to use these for food and for cover, and you can hunt them to some extent, depending on how old they are. And that's another important thing too. Like looking at one that was done in 2018, that's 5 years old now. So you're going to have a high stem count in there. It's going to be hard to walk through there. It's going to be hard to hunt it. So you might be able to look at that and see that deer are going to be bedded there and that they're going to be feeding there. But you know that deer are going to be relating to this. Now here's one from 13, so that's going to tell you that actually that's starting to get somewhat mature, so that you could probably walk through it and you'll find deer trails and rubs and scrapes in there. 2020 you might actually be able to see through. These are hiking trails here. So that's showing you access. And actually this might even be an ATV trail, so those would be closed by deer season. But all these different features on maps are things we're looking at as far as, like, we want to hunt remote areas, but you can't, if you don't have trails or roads or something to follow, you can't get a group of guys, 2, 3, this is probably 5 miles across here. So you can't, it's not going to be, you're going to need some sort of roads or at least trails to get access to where you're going. And that'll also give you an idea too of how many other people might be hunting these areas. So just an example map here that had a lot of, like, here's one, this must be ATV trails, I think, here. So you got to figure there's a lot of pressure on this year round, as well as easy access for people to get back and hunt. So like this is an area where, and it's near a main road. So probably not going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking more at a place like this or a place like this. Like this is interesting in the way that there's a road here and you can kind of get to it from this way too. So just kind of talking about a little bit about the things we're looking at from a high level to sort of find a place to hunt to begin with.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
say you've made your pre-planned hunt and bringing your group in to hunt, then all of a sudden you get there and there are 10 other vehicles there. Are you going to alter your plan, or
No,
hasn't that happened?
no.
They're just the lucky guys to be hunting in the same area where we're going, and they're going to have a good time. Yeah.
That's a tough one, and there's going to be a time someday where that's going to happen, where it's going to be like, wow, there's another group, because there are other groups like us that are doing the same sort of stuff. We ran into some guys last year, first day, and they only had a small group at that time, but they said that they did hunt with bigger groups, and it's not uncommon to run into 2 or 3 people during a hunt. But as far as, run into another big group or something like that, no, we haven't had that problem. I'm expecting one day that we will.
That first drive last year, we ran into that group of guys that were hunting from private land coming up from the bottom, and we pushed a freaking herd of deer to them, and ended up being a kid got his first deer, and I was right there to witness the whole thing. It was awesome. But they just got caught up in our masterpiece, and we put them all right, and they shot probably 15 times and they killed 1 yipper, but it was awesome. It was great. There's nothing better than gunshots in the mountains.
A question real quick. On the clear cut drives, you ever have like a big buck almost refuse to get pushed out?
No.
He'll cut back through, or?
Well, that's the thing, is we don't actually push the clear cuts.
Oh, okay.
Rarely ever. We may have to walk through them for access. And there has been times in the past where we looked at one and thought that it might be the right age to try to do, but usually what happens is, exactly. And that's actually one of my big fears, is that all the big bucks are up in the clear cuts hiding from us, because there is no way to get them out. And even if you could, who's going to be that guy? Probably Billy, because he always shoots a buck on the first morning.
Right.
So we're going to send him in there with no gun and just let him crawl around on his hands and knees. But we've tried to, back in the early days, we tried to do like the 10, 15-year-old clear cuts that are all where the cherries had thinned out enough where you could kind of get through there. And there's deer in there, but they're just playing games with you all day long. I mean, there's
especially a mature deer. I bet you just slips in between everyone.
Yeah.
Well, we see the big ones a lot of times double back on us. We've had one of the biggest deer we ever saw. We had 2 guys, 3 of us on the drive that had no gun, because we all filled our tags, and it was probably 150. It was biggest buck Brian's ever seen, and Brian shot some big bucks, his brother, and he was screaming and yelling, huge buck, and there's nothing you could do. He's just yelling at the thing, and it just walked right past him, just doubled back on the drive, and went right back. The
clear cuts are, to me, you have to look at it as an advantage as far as a place to go to, but we know that's why these bucks are getting the way that they are. They're getting big and old because of the clear cuts, right? But as far as trying to hunt them, good luck. I mean, even trying to set up with a bow, I mean, you try to find a tree in there to begin with, and then one where you can actually shoot something, right? That's where a deer has a huge advantage on you. Aside from all the terrain and being remote and everything like that, and that's why we're going at them with numbers. It's kind of a organized chaos to try to get the bucks moving, and they will. And one thing we find is that the bucks group up a lot. Especially in the hill country, it seems like they bachelor up early, really even when we would expect to still be seeing some rutting activity going on, the bucks are already grouping up. So sometimes you'll run into a group of bucks and that they kind of want to stick together, and then that seems to be when they get themselves in trouble too.
Yeah. Let's hit the next one. All right, so we're gonna get into some scenarios and show some success we've had. So this was last year, a hunt that we called Death Valley. It's called Death Valley because this happened. We went in there, this was the second day of our hunt last year, and we shot these 3 bucks. There was actually 4 bucks running together. The buck on the left, Jim shot him first with the other 3 bucks behind him, and the second buck got shot by the other Jim in the middle, and then the third buck got shot here, and the fourth buck was lucky enough to find a way out of the valley without getting shot at, and he survived. But this drive, we'll show you the map here on the next page if you want to move forward. I'll take the driver's seat here. So we got this is north, zoomed in on this valley. So this here is Death Valley, okay? So there was 3 walkers on this hunt. So walker here, and this was my track, me walking here. So the goal was to push this valley up, and we had Jim Vogel sitting here, Jim D sitting here, and we had a couple other sitters up on this point. We were actually hunting the valley over on this other side too. So we had these other saddles covered up coming out of this one. So as we were coming up here, there was deer up feeding along on here. We were bumping deer almost immediately. And as I was coming up, I jumped these deer here. They wrapped around this point, and I worked my way up onto this bench and came across, and I got up. This was an old area on this point here that had been clear cut at some point. A lot of old cherry, small density or small thickness cherry slashings up on top here. And I came across this point and I jumped a bunch of deer. Never saw what they were, but I jumped a bunch of deer. So I dropped down over the edge, and I, like Dallas alluded to, I've been very fortunate the last few years, and I've shot bucks on the first day. So I've been able to do a lot of walking, a lot of pushing, and I love getting just over the edge where I can see down, but I can also bump anything that's up here on the top. And I'm loud. When I'm walking, like if I don't have a tag, like I'm just walking and I'm stomping on sticks, and I'm not yelling and hooting, but I'm trying to make noise walking through the woods. So as I was right about here, I heard a whole bunch of crashing in the bottom right in this area, and it all went, it ran down the creek towards the bottom, but it just stopped and went silent. And I found that kind of interesting because I was anticipating that deer were going to go up and out, but they didn't. And they came down, and it just seemed like they were kind of huddled right here. So I worked my way all the way around this little valley here, and as I came around, I got back into a ton of really good deer sign right on this side. And it was very steep, as you can see, and all of a sudden I came right across this bench. I got back up on this bench here, and I got to right about here, and all hell broke loose below me, and I'm 99% sure it was that group of 4 bucks. And they bumped them out from below me. They were somewheres in here, and they wrapped around the point, and then they went right straight up this little valley. And it doesn't show it on the map, but this is like a significant clear cut, like nothing left, completely wiped out clear cut. And I walked right on the base of it is my line there. So those deer, there's a stream that ran right up through here, and this is the edge of the clear cut. Those 4 bucks ran right straight up that hill, and Jim was in the perfect spot. And those 4 bucks, single file line, came right straight to him. He shot the first one in line. And those other 3 bucks turned and ran right straight across this ridge. Perfect, right straight to Jim. Jim shot the next first buck in line. And then the other 2 dropped down the hill, and our pusher here, it was Greg, I think, right? Yeah. Greg was right here, and those other 2 ran right straight to Greg. He shot the 10-pointer. So it was probably all in the matter of 5 minutes. I don't know. I mean, time flies. It couldn't have been long. Within 5 minutes, we killed 3 of the 4 bucks, and Clayton was right here. No idea. Clayton wears glasses, and I wonder sometimes whether he can see anything in front of him or not. And I'm sure that deer ran right by him, but he didn't see him. So we could have went 4 for 4 on that hunt, but this was probably our most successful drive as far as shooting a group of deer, and I feel bad for anyone who consistently hunts that valley because now there's probably not much to hunt there next year. But I'm sure they'll be back. They'll move in, and that was kind of how that hunt went.
So did you kick the deer out?
I kicked the deer out, yep, as a pusher, yep.
So how did you coordinate your movement? I mean, you went 5 times as far as all the rest of the guys did there.
Yeah, so with the radios, I could see where they had been, and I knew I had a lot of ground to cover, so I was really humping. And Clayton still had a tag, and so did Greg. which were the other 2 walkers. So I knew that they were depending on me to put deer up in front of them. You know, like it's my job at that point to get it done for them. So I was really humping like that from where I jumped them the first time to going all the way around that. I mean, I was like fast walking. I was not trying to be quiet. I wasn't trying to, you know, keep anything going slow. Yeah, go ahead.
Where is this?
Where is it?
Where are you on?
Pennsylvania. In the woods. Susquehannock State Forest.
State Forest.
Yep.
And yeah, what is the state forest there is like something like almost 500,000 acres of public land, plus the different game lands that are mixed in there too. So
yep.
We always tell everybody, if you can find us, you can hunt with us.
Yeah, meet us in 2G is what we say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Potter County 2G Susquehannock. So yeah, go ahead.
That's where I work.
Yeah.
It's 265,000.
Yeah, that is the number. I've
Quarter
heard that before.
$250,000.
It's half of the town.
But if you add in all the other public land that's around the area, it's quite spacious.
If
And
you
it-
recognize any of this topography or these streams, please keep that to yourself. Appreciate it. So the funny story on this hunt, so I posted the pictures on our Instagram and Facebook, and this has happened 3 years in a row now, where we've had people reach out to us and say, I've been hunting that deer for years. And we'll show you pictures of the buck that Brian shot in 2020 that was a 12-pointer, that there was a guy that had been hunting that deer for like 5 years, and he was awesome. And we got together, we talked, he shared all the history of the deer. It was amazing. But that one of those 3 bucks, I had a guy message me, he goes, were you hunting near this town? I was like, nah. I was like, maybe. He's like, look at all these trail cam pictures. I'm like, shit, we shot your bucks. I was like, but yeah, social media is a wild place, I'll tell you.
So this hunt's interesting. I'll point out a couple more things. Number one, the answer to the question before is that Billy is a goat, so he gets up and around places faster than anybody else. There's a couple people in our group that can really cover ground like that. And I will say too, if you're like he was and you're not carrying a rifle and you use trekking poles,
Yep.
you can probably double to triple your speed going up and down mountains. It's incredible the amount of time you can save without lugging a big heavy rifle around, and having trekking poles just gives you the ability. It's like having 4 legs. I mean, that's why deer can move so fast through these areas. But this hunt, there is a public road here, and you can see that some people went up from there, but this is an extremely steep grade right here. Like that's probably took them 45 minutes of, near death to get from here to here. I mean, you're talking probably 400 to 500 feet of straight up elevation.
When I got to the
climb.
top, all the beer I drank the night before was out of my system, and I was good to go. Yeah.
Now this up here doesn't show a road, but this is a logging road that comes in from the north, and I accessed this I was hunting in the next valley up to the north, but that road would be a fairly flat walk for the most part. The only problem is it's probably about 5 miles, so it's going to take you half a day to get down it. Now, a bunch of our sitters came in from here and another spot up north, and same thing, it's a straight up climb, but not nearly as bad as what Billy went through. So we're identifying a really good area to hunt that's not easy to access, but also not impossible. You just have to put in the work to get there. You can see really clearly on a map too, if you understand topography a little bit, about why this would be a good spot. Because like here you got south-facing slopes with super steep drops in the bottom. Here you got a nice bench system with another steep point coming up here. So you could, like here and here and here, as well as down here, would be spots you'd look at on a map and say that I could see a mature buck bedded there, right, Steve?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we learned when we spent the time with Steve, was those are the spots that they go there. Like we went for a walk, I'll never forget that the first spot we went, you're like, this is a bed here that I think these deer have been actively using. We walk up there and literally come around there's a little like rock bluff spot. We come around it and the deer jumps out of the bed. Steve's like, yep, there he is. I'm like, what the freak? I'm like, I could spend 6 weeks in the mountains and I wouldn't find that. And Steve knew exactly where that deer was sleeping. So
Now same thing over here. Probably a little bit more traffic over here with the road and everything, but you got to look at like this. Okay, this is a north-facing slope, and that's not necessarily bad either. But I would expect more probably that I would look more on this side. But we also we'll walk this side, and because deer are still, even if they're bedded on this side, they're going to come down across and up, try to come up and over a lot of times, and that's where a guy, and that's what they did. Eventually, they got caught up in here and circled around, and whether or not they knew better than to go up there where we had sitters, they tried to stay in the cover and not come up across the top of the ridge where they could be silhouetted or have to cross an open area like a fresh clear cut or a road. And they ended up going below our guys, but not far enough. It didn't work out. And eventually the two that made it past the first, they ended up running into this guy. And that's what I was saying before, is that if they decide not to go up and out, they'll come down and across, or they'll actually go all the way up and around the ends of these places, and they'll double back on this side. So the guy that kicked him out over here might never have any idea that there was a buck over there, but he'll circle all the way back around and come this way, and I would venture to guess that he's going to eventually filter his way back up into the same bed that he was in 2 hours before. And meanwhile, all the guys, the pressure has moved through. But what we figured out is that by having people on both sides, you catch them doing that. Another thing is that when you first kick a deer up, you know, a lot of people ask us, how do you shoot deer in here if you're not like an expert at shooting running deer or anything like that? But what actually happens is when you kick these deer up, they might take off running at first, but they know enough not to just run for miles without thinking about it. So usually what they'll do is they'll jump up and take off to get away from the initial threat that's posed to them, but they won't go very far before they'll slow down to a trot or a walk, and they'll stop and go. So they're going to just get away from you, and they're going to just pick their way through the terrain, and they're using the terrain to their advantage, and they know it. They're using wind and thermals and their sight advantage, especially if they stay high, they can see everything below them. So you end up not blasting away at a bunch of running deer. Actually, most of the deer that we shoot are walking or standing still. So it's just being spread out and covering a wide area gives you the luxury of being able to have those opportunities. This hunt went well, but it's actually a really good example of the way you can deploy a group and have success.
Any other questions on that one? We're getting a little long-winded here, so
I have a question.
Yeah.
On that last map, about how far apart then, yardage is each guy in that situation? Because at the top it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's about 150, 200 yards. Okay. And depending on the topography, we'll sometimes even have guys closer than that. I mean, you could have some of these ridges that they might be 15, 20 yards wide, but you need to have a guy on each side of them because you're seeing completely different areas. It's a good question. So this map here is the same hunt. So the bottom is that hunt where we were on, but I zoomed out to show the scale of what we were doing with the entire group and where we were coming from. So we had guys accessing from 4 different areas, and I used the measuring tool on Onyx, and we were covering 2,400 acres with this hunt. And we were done and out of there by lunch with 3 bucks on our backpacks. So it's incredible. We've come a long way. I mean, a few years ago, we had 16, 17 guys, and it was kind of chaotic. But like this hunt could not have worked out any better. Everybody went in the way they were supposed to. Everybody came out the way they were supposed to, and we had incredible success and covered a ton of territory. So this is just a drawing here, as Dallas showed earlier. One of the things that we started doing was actually assigning people to vehicles. So when we knew who was going to be hunting with who, you ride with this person, like we're getting down to the nitty gritty, and it's making it like dummy proof. Like if you get in that truck, you're going to the right place, and you just, we have a couple guys. We got Pete that we know. You thought I was going to say you, but I didn't. But we got one of our older guys. We got Pete. We make sure that we put him in Dallas's hip pocket so he can't wander too far and get us in trouble. But
having a hard time reading what hollow.
Yeah. It's at least a hollow. You can do some reconnaissance if you'd like. Instead of analyzing all that trail cam data, you can analyze some maps. So I'll let Dallas tell the story about this one, but this valley here, we've had great success in this valley too. A buck I shot on the left in 2018, 19, and Dallas shot that buck in the middle right after I shot mine. and then Brian shot that one in 2020. So I'll let, and we're going close to an hour, so we can kind of move through this pretty quick. But
yeah, this is just another example of different.
Show where we got into them,
yeah.
I guess, is the key to this one.
I guess we've done this all different kinds of ways, but we've killed a couple in the bottom here, but this one you can access from all different directions. Again, it's just another map. I don't know how well anybody can see it, but just another way that we scheme up all different hunters from all different directions. It's nice when you can have different access points and come in from different directions and kind of close in on an area.
Yeah, we found that with the fact that we're using the radios and we can see where each other are, we aren't terribly afraid, and we talk. I mean, we have these meetings before we go on these hunts and we say, safety is a top priority. Know where you're shooting, know where everybody's supposed to be coming from, and we do try to converge on the deer. But without that technology, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'm sure everybody in this room would be like, I'm not okay with that. And that's where it's important to vet out the guys in your group to know that you can trust them, that they're good marksmen, they know how to handle their gun, they know where to keep things pointed. Because there is some risk in this, no doubt, but if you're using common sense and planning, you can be effective with it.
This is a good example map of the way. This is when we killed the 150-inch 12-pointer there in 2020. My brother and I, we came down this hill, and I kicked the buck out of here, and he crossed the stream and ran parallel up across the stream, and my brother was coming downhill at the same time and intercepted him. But a couple of reasons why this worked was because we had other people coming in from the north to kind of cut that off, so they would have had a chance at the deer as well. But other things here too is a couple of really large clear cuts where the deer probably won't travel through unless they're desperate, I think, unless they really want to get away from us. You can see a laneway here where you're going to have a sitter, and this is kind of more of a little bit open hardwoods but steep terrain, so a deer would still be comfortable in here because he can bet on the steep terrain and be able to see this whole valley. We happen to just come in from above him and bump him in a direction that worked for us. But that buck being in there on that day was not good for him because we had him covered from a whole lot of different directions. So it's not totally shocking that that was the end of him.
So this is by far our most successful valley that we've hunted in. We call it Vogel Valley because the guy up in the right, Jim, he shot 2 bucks back-to-back years standing at exactly the same tree. And AJ and I on the bottom, AJ shot that buck on the right this year, and I shot that one in 2021. And we were within about 100 yards of where we shot those deer. I shot my deer in his bed. I was actually a sitter, and I got to my spot, popped over the side of the hill. There was a little bit of snow on the ground, and I actually spotted him bedded. And I shot him in his neck at about 100 yards, dropped him right there, never stood up. But that deer was almost exactly the same area where I jumped up, or I like to claim that I'm always the one jumping the bucks up to go to everybody. But AJ's deer, I'm pretty certain that deer was hanging right in the same area that my buck was, based on the tracks that I was finding and running in the leaves. So this drive here is another massive area, but we're pushing a whole valley down, and then we're pushing it all back up. And so you can see where the red X's are. That's 5 bucks in 4 years we've killed in that valley. Not even 4 years, 3 years, I think. 5 bucks in 3 years we've killed in that valley. And it's amazing. The deer are doing the same things over and over again. And it's not the same in every valley, but if you find those, like we showed in Death Valley, like we showed in Vogel Valley, the deer are very consistent in the way they want to travel.
Yeah, there's a couple of real, the red X's are actually spots that just, those were easy X's to place because they stand right out on a topo map. I mean, this is, by the way, is a heavy clear cut now that's growing in really well. So that sort of wants to keep them in the valley. So it's pretty obvious that a deer is going to want to run up through these valleys and up the other side. So this is and it's worked over here too, where sometimes we come in here and push them back up this way. But what you're looking at is a valley or a bowl almost. Like the end of this is kind of a bowl where if you can get deer trapped inside of there and push them up, you either can push them up and out to the likely escape points where you'll have people, or like I say, if they want to stay in here Or in here, you'll have your people that are walking that'll be down there and already in position for them. So
Yeah.
some of these spots that we pick out on maps and we go in there and sort of prove that they're good spots, then you can just keep going back at them.
So just another breakdown. We don't need to go through that. So this is part of my life journey. Dallas and I's life journey is to try to speak the importance of learning how to backpack your deer out. I see like this big trend in big woods hunting is like, oh, I dragged my deer 6 miles and almost had a heart attack and, you know, everything else. What we have found, Dallas and his family brought me into this in my trips out west. Quartering a deer, if you haven't quartered one, if you go and do any of these hunts, one of the biggest challenges is you go to get ready to pull the trigger and you're like, how the hell am I gonna get this deer out of here? Quartering is the answer, and it's become a huge tool in my arsenal. I know it has in a lot of the guys in our group. And if you really want to weigh them, you know, we were busting Steve's chops about it when we were talking, getting ready for this, talking on the phone. You know, I'll carry a 1.5 pound scale in and some cord, and I'll run it up in the tree and I'll weigh them there. I'm not going to drag that thing all the way out of the woods. So these are some pictures of us quartering AJ's buck this year. That's a buck I shot up in New York with my gun, and I actually had the whole deer in my backpack. So I boned him out, everything in game bags, my tree saddle, my platform, and my sticks all on my back, and was able to carry that out of the woods. And then the one on the left is that buck that I shot in his bed. Same deal. I had bone in, so I had 2 quarters, and I think Dallas had a couple quarters in his backpack. But you know, I was able to hunt the whole rest of the day. That was the first hunt of the day. I hunted out the rest of the day with the deer on my back and got back to the truck. And so it wasn't exactly comfortable climbing the mountains with that much weight on my shoulders, but I was able to be a functioning member of the team while packing the deer out.
It might be the one thing that makes us more successful than anything else is being able to not stop hunting. So 3 guys like that that deer was in a backpack in a half hour, and that's what taking pictures and taking our time and taking good care of the meat and everything. And then you put your backpack on and you just keep right along with the plan. And the guys that are waiting for you to hunt, they're not really like bored waiting for you or anything. The hunt goes on. So that's been, I mean, because even if you put all this together and you have success and then it takes you a day and a half to get the deer out, then you might as well go elk hunting, you know?
Right. So I think this might be one of our last slides. I'll just hit a couple things. I posted a picture on here. I don't know if any of you guys in here use these boot blankets. Does anybody in here use boot blankets? You're the smartest ones in the room. I think it was you guys that turned me on to them. And it's actually become one of the most important pieces of gear that I carry when we do any of these mobile hunts, because you could be, at any moment, you could be walking for 3.5 hours straight, so you don't want to be wearing insulated boots, or you could be sitting for 3.5 hours straight, and you might have sweat going in, and you need to keep your feet warm. So I wear those, we call them boot blankets. I wear those boot blankets, and I put hand warmers or foot warmers in there, zip them up, and I'll be wearing my leather, uninsulated boots all season long, no issue, and I'll just throw those on over the top. That's for 25 or 30 bucks, like the best money you could spend to be comfortable in the woods. And you know, those are game bags. Anybody who's not familiar, I've got examples of some of that stuff up here if anybody wants to see it and touch it. But you know, I'm a big Kafaru fan. Finding a good quality pack that you can use. I mean, I use this thing for all the way from September 1st to January 1st. I use that pack whether I'm out west or hunting in the deer woods here. So finding good stuff. And Dallas and his brother could certainly attest to the importance of toilet paper and keeping your toilet paper dry. We were on a bear hunt in the Adirondacks, like the first time I think we ever went on a trip together, and poured rain first thing in the morning, and we had way too much fun the night before, and Brian was so pissed because his shit tickets got wet, and he had to leave. He couldn't hunt anymore, had to leave the woods. So keep your toilet paper dry. That is a key to happiness in the mountains.
That was after he fell over backwards in a swamp. I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not.
And don't forget to have fun and make memories along the way. I mean, we all love to shoot the trophy and have all the inches and the deer on the wall, but it's these nights at camp where you've got some of your best friends in the world hanging out with you, telling stories, making memories, and you know, the pictures, and you know, whether it's water or if it's beer, whatever you're drinking, you know, there should be some garbage outside from all the fun you're having with the gang. So I don't know if that's the last. I think that might be the last slide. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Sorry for listening to us. I know it's been a long night, but any questions on any of that? All right, thank you, everybody. Yeah.
guys. So big thanks to Pertinier and to Steve, some outstanding topics and some great presentations. These guys are local, and they're guys just like us. They're not huge, ginormous celebrities on TV or anything. They're accessible people. They're
Not even close.
2 out of the 3 of them are halfway decent. I'm not talking about you.
All right, that's fine. You're not invited in 2 weeks to Shed
So
Fest.
these were, out of all the seminars we've done, this one is the 7th out of the 2 years that we've been doing this, and this was the first real hunting-related topics that we've gotten into. I think it was outstanding. I hope you all enjoyed the content and the presentations. We hope you keep coming back for these. If any of you have any thoughts or any ideas on something else that you'd like to hear presented on, or any feedback, whether it's positive or negative, our ears are wide open. You guys, our email addresses are on every poster and everything that you get, and you can talk to any one of us here. Some other thank yous that I've got for tonight. I want to thank the Rod and Gun Club for having us here tonight. Great facility here. We like to use this place. We've got a nice partnership with them, and they got really the whole grounds here are really great. We use it for our AeroFast, some of our seminars, and some of our meetings that we have down here. Second, Paul and Whitetail Food Plots. If you want to just raise your hand, he was the one that supplied the food plot seat for some of our door prizes and the one raffle prize that we had tonight. He's another local guy that you can talk to and ask questions about, and he's got some good products there. And just everybody for coming. It was a really good turnout tonight. It was one of our best ones so far out of all of them. And I know everybody has competing priorities and other things that they want to do, and we've got families and everything else, but we really appreciate the support that you show us and coming out here with us tonight. Our last seminar is going to be right here on Thursday, September 28th. And if any of you were here last year at our very last one, we had Kip Adams come. Kip's coming back again. We don't have topics nailed down yet. It's more conversation to come, but it'll basically be the same thing. We're going to have a full meal. I don't know if we'll do tacos again or not, but we'll have a little party and have a whole big thing about it and wrap up our whole season with what we've done with our branch with all of you supporting us. And we'll have maybe a couple of raffles and things like that again, and we'll give away the cooler, which if any of you that were with our seminars last year, we had that really awesome Weatherby rifle. And out of all the people that came to all 5 of them and had all the tickets, this guy right here came to one. He came to the 3rd one that we had at the Legion, and he couldn't make any of the rest of them, and his number was drawn. And he's the one that got the rifle. So it only takes 1 ticket, but if any of you that came to all 5 of them are mad about it, right there is where you got it. So,
and those exits are locked, so he says.
Yeah, so that's about it. We got Shed Fest coming. Shed Fest, that's right.
Is that right? All the money we're going to try to raise for you, huh? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Who's the bad guy now, huh? Yeah.
Well, you're back in my good books.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Pertinier's got their annual Shed Fest party on Sunday, the 23rd at Windy Brew. 23rd of this month.
Couple weeks.
Windy Brew in Strikersville. We've been going and helping them and being a sponsor for that event for a long time. Windy Brew's got some excellent beers. We have a couple of raffles up there. There's a lot of giveaways. We've got Ben Williams here. He's on site scoring any of the sheds that you found, or if you want to bring your mounts in, he can do that. It really is an outstanding time. So if you don't have anything planned for Sunday the 23rd, look into...
Yeah, and so what we do at Shed Fest is we've been doing it for months now, but the day event, everybody comes together. Bring any of your sheds you have. If you don't have any sheds, who cares? But it's a fundraiser for you guys. That's what we're doing. We don't, all the money we raise there, all the profits go directly to your branch. So Sean's been great working with us. We love working with you guys. This group of people down here is awesome. I wish we had a branch close to us, but we'll gladly work with you because I don't want to make a branch in my area, so we'll just work on your back. But all the money's for you guys. We'll do the poster raffles, guns, anything like that.
Yeah, so. It's a really good time. Last thing again, I just want to say again, the AeroFest, Saturday, May 20th. Everybody get tickets. I guarantee you'll have a great time. Everybody will win something, maybe, and that's it. So just thanks. Stick around, have some beers or some more food if you want. Just appreciate it. Thank you.
Feed 'em.